Story 1. The Forgotten Carol. Emily had always loved Christmas, but this year felt different. It was her first holiday without her grandmother, who had passed away earlier that fall. Determined to honor her memory, Emily decided to decorate the house just as her grandmother had always done. Her search for decorations led her to the attic, a place she hadn't visited in years. Dust coated every surface, and cobwebs stretched across the rafters. Emily sifted through boxes of ornaments and faded garlands until something unusual caught her eye. A small wooden chest sealed with dark red wax. The seal looked ancient, cracked in places, but the wax still held strong. As she touched the box, a faint humming sound emerged, so soft she wondered if she had imagined it. Curiosity got the better of her. She pried at the lid, breaking the wax. Inside, she found an ornate music box, its golden surface tarnished and cold. Alongside it was a folded piece of paper. "Do not let it finish the song." Her stomach tightened, but she dismissed the warning as an old superstition. She wound the key and a slow, haunting carol began to play. It was beautiful, but unsettling. Each note lingered a little too long. The attic grew colder as the melody echoed off the walls. Emily shivered and turned to leave, but the door creaked shut behind her. She ran to it, tugging the handle, but it wouldn't budge. Then she heard it, whispers, faint, overlapping voices coming from the shadows. Emily spun around and saw movement. A figure wrapped in torn ribbons, its face obscured by gauzy cloth. It shuffled closer. Panicked, Emily grabbed the music box and tried to stop it, but the key wouldn't turn back. The carol continued, louder now, and the shadows in the attic seemed to come alive. "Stop!" she screamed, slamming the box against the floor. The song cut off, and the figure froze. For a moment, Emily thought she was safe, until the figure lunged at her. She stumbled, knocking over a stack of boxes, and scrambled toward the door. Suddenly, it opened, and she tumbled out into the hallway. She slammed the door shut behind her, her heart racing. But the nightmare wasn't over. Downstairs, the music box sat on the coffee table, pristine and whole. The key was turning by itself. That night, Emily tried to destroy it, burning, smashing, drowning. But nothing worked, and every time she closed her eyes, she saw the figure waiting. By morning, Emily was gone, leaving behind only the music box, still playing its cursed melody. Story 2. The Christmas Visitor. The Johnsons had always loved Christmas. Their home was filled with laughter, twinkling lights, and the smell of pine. This year was no different, or so they thought. Little Lily was ecstatic when she found a new doll under the tree. It was porcelain, with glassy blue eyes and a red velvet dress. But something about the doll unsettled her parents. Its face was too lifelike, and its expression seemed to change when no one was looking. That night, Lily insisted on keeping the doll in her bed. She said it made her feel safe, but her parents couldn't shake their unease. By morning, things began to change. Lily's room was a mess, her toys scattered, and the doll was missing. They found it later, sitting in the living room, its dress damp and streaked with dirt. Lily insisted she hadn't moved it, but her parents scolded her anyway. Still, the next morning, the footprints appeared. Muddy, child-sized prints leading from the front door to Lily's bed. The doll was back, perched on her pillow. Her father checked the locks. Everything was secure. But that night, they heard soft footsteps outside their bedroom door. When they opened it, the doll was sitting there, its head tilted slightly as if it were listening. Terrified, they decided to get rid of it. They tried burning it in the fireplace, but the flames wouldn't touch it. The doll sat motionless, its glassy eyes fixed on them. by the third night they couldn't sleep. Every sound made them jump. Finally, they packed their bags and fled the house, leaving everything behind. But it wasn't over. On Christmas morning, they checked into a hotel miles away. Exhausted, they finally felt safe, until Lily found the doll sitting on the windowsill. It was dirtier now, its dress torn, but its eyes gleamed with something almost alive. They threw it out the window, but an hour later it was back inside, sitting at the foot of their bed. Over the next few days, their phones stopped working, and their car wouldn't start. The doll followed them wherever they went, always appearing, always watching. Lily began talking to it, whispering secrets her parents couldn't hear. She said the doll promised to take care of her. On New Year's Eve, the Johnsons woke up to find Lily gone. The front door was wide open, and snowy footprints led into the woods. They followed the trail for hours, but all they found was the doll, sitting in the snow, holding Lily's scarf. Its grin had widened. The Johnsons never saw their daughter again, but every Christmas they hear faint footsteps outside their door and find the doll waiting on their porch. Story 3. The Devouring Sleigh. In the remote mountain town of Pine Hollow, Christmas Eve was a time for excitement and tradition. The snow-covered hills were perfect for sledding, and groups of friends would gather to race down the slopes until midnight. This year, Jake and his friends were determined to find the steepest, most thrilling hill to conquer. But their adventure led them to something far more sinister. The group of 5 teens, armed with flashlights and old sleds, trudged through the snowy woods in search of the perfect hill. As they climbed higher, the trees grew denser, and the air grew colder. "I heard there's an abandoned sledding trail up here," Jake said, leading the way. "It hasn't been used in years." "Probably because it's dangerous," his friend Mia replied, shivering. "We should stick to the usual spots." But Jake was determined. They pushed on until they found it. A steep, winding hill that plunged into darkness. At the top of the hill, half buried in snow, was a massive wooden sleigh. It was old and weathered, its paint peeling and its runners rusted. Strange symbols were carved into the wood, and the sleigh's curved edges looked almost like teeth. "Whoa, check this out," Jake's friend Chris said, brushing snow off the sleigh. "This thing is ancient." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. He had heard stories about a cursed sleigh that appeared only on Christmas Eve. The Devouring Sleigh, locals called it. According to legend, it would lure thrill-seekers to ride it, only to drag them into the woods, never to be seen again. Jake shook his head, trying to dismiss the thought. It was just a story, right? The group decided to ride the sleigh together. They piled in, laughing and jostling for space. Jake sat at the back, his unease growing. As they pushed off, the sleigh moved faster than they expected. The laughter turned to shrieks of delight as they sped down the hill, but soon the speed became unbearable. The sleigh veered off the path, plunging into the forest. The teens screamed as the trees blurred past. Jake tried to jump off, but the sleigh wouldn't let him. The wood warped and shifted, forming jagged teeth that clamped around the edges. The runners glowed red, leaving trails of fire in the snow. One by one, his friends were swallowed by the sleigh. Their screams were cut short as the monstrous contraption devoured them. Jake was the last one left. He fought desperately, clawing at the sides until he managed to throw himself off. He tumbled into the snow, bruised and terrified, as the sleigh disappeared into the darkness, its fiery tracks vanishing behind it. Jake stumbled back to town, half frozen and incoherent. He told the police what had happened, but no one believed him. The hill was searched, but there was no sign of the sleigh or his friends. The town mourned the loss, but Jake knew the truth. The devouring sleigh was real, and it was still out there, waiting for its next victims. Weeks later, Jake awoke to a strange sound outside his window. Peering through the frost-covered glass, he saw it. The sleigh, sitting in the snow, its jagged teeth gleaming. The faint sound of laughter echoed through the night, and Jake knew it hadn't forgotten him.